today talking to you about a user research project I did with my colleague Emma Cross. And we looked at the user experience of students doing academic research, okay, but then looked at that UX from a technical services perspective. So I'm going to start off talking about the research that we did, and then I'm going to talk about the results that we pulled out that we thought were most relevant to technical services staff. And then I'm going to talk about a discussion that we had with our own technical services staff about those results. So it's kind of a three-step thing. I'm really sorry that Emma can't be here because she is the technical services brain behind this. I'm sort of the user research monkey. But I brought my phone up because Emma is watching the live stream and will text in to help answer questions if you have them. Okay, so why did we do this anyway? Because technical services and user experience don't generally go hand in hand. But we had a technical services supervisor in our library who was she was finding it very difficult to prioritize the work of her staff. So she was wondering if she could have some insight on what work they were doing that would have the biggest impact on our users. So if you have a whole bunch of stuff, what is actually going to make a big difference to particularly our students? I thought that was a great question. So Emma and I designed the research to be student-led. It was really exploratory. We didn't have very specific questions that we were looking to answer, but we were interested in seeing where students were searching for information, how are they searching, and then how are they dealing with search results? What were they looking at in their search results? In the session, we asked students to just search for something they needed for a research project. So there were no specific questions, just search for something you need. And then I asked them to try to do what they would normally do when they were searching, acknowledging that it's super weird to be searching with two people watching you. But we also explicitly told them that even though we were from the library and the sessions were being held in the library, they should not feel that they had to use library tools or library resources if they normally wouldn't do that when they were searching. So we asked them to search and think aloud as they were searching. This can be difficult, so I prompted them with questions when they were quiet. We let them search till they came sort of to a logical end, and that was anywhere from 10 minutes to 40 minutes. We did let them know when we hit the 30-minute mark, just because they had places to go and things to do. And so most of the searches were 20 to 30 minutes long. Yeah, so Emma took notes. She observed and took notes while I moderated the session. But we also used video capture, which was very important because students work really fast. So she couldn't keep up with absolutely everything that was going on, so it was really important to have that video record that we could go back to. We did the research in March of this year. We saw 10 undergraduate students and 10 graduate students, did some analysis. Emma coded everything, and she pulled out 4 key themes that she thought were most important or relevant to technical services staff. So those are, number 1, overwhelming use of the single search box. Summon or Google Scholar were used by almost everybody. The catalog, not so much. Library catalog, no. There were other tools that people used, just vanilla Google, Wikipedia, Tumblr. 7 students, I double-checked the number, 7 students did use subject-specific databases, but a variety of them, so really Summon and Google Scholar were tops. And we also found there was very little difference between undergraduates and graduates in their use of the tools, with the exception of the catalog, which was only used by undergraduates. That seems very weird. But this is a very good time to emphasize that this was a qualitative study and not a quantitative study. So we're not going to extrapolate from this and say 20% of undergrads use the catalog and no graduate students do. It was more about looking for patterns. And as we were observing students, the catalog really just did not come up, or come up much. So our second theme, Emma's second theme, is the logical corollary to the overwhelming use of single search, so the popularity of the Get It button, and the link resolver just in general. Students were very verbal about this. I love it. It makes my life easier. It's really useful. It's helpful. And then this one student was very excited. Hey, look, Carleton offers to get this in Google Scholar. That is great. She was really, really excited. But even the students who weren't explicitly, loving Get It, used it seamlessly. The link resolver presented no problems for them. This may not seem like a big deal, but I have seen user research from other university libraries that show that their students do stumble over Get It links. So it was nice to see that at Carleton, our students seem to get It. The third theme is around metadata and two aspects of that. So metadata that students are searching for, and or metadata that students are looking at, and metadata that they're searching for. So a pattern we saw repeated over and over again was students quickly searching titles for the relevant keywords, checking out the publication date to see if it was too old, and too old varied from person to person. And then if that checked out, looking at an abstract or a little snippet, and if that looked good, printing, downloading, saving the article to look at later. This pattern was so kind of ingrained that when students came across records that didn't have an abstract or a snippet, which usually monograph records, they'd get a little confused, usually, and just skip over. Like, well, I need more information, whatever. And then they move on to the next thing. And then although students were looking at these different metadata fields, they were really not searching them. We saw a couple of people did author searches. There was one incredibly heartbreaking subject search that I can tell you about in the break or at lunch. But other than that, it was keyword, 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 keyword all the time. The last theme, fast and easy access. So students quickly skimmed results lists, generally not going past the first page, or in the case of Summon, which has the infinite scroll, they totally know where 10 results is. So they did not tend to go, and undergraduates often didn't get to 10 results. Graduate students would persist a little further, but not very far. Many students were very open about saying, look, I am really busy. I cannot waste time. I have to get through things fast. And there was a general tendency to skip over content that was hard to access. So things on course reserve, things in our storage facility, books that were already borrowed, and documents that just took a long time to download. They would just give up partway through. Nope, not worth it. On to the next thing. And even when they did pursue these harder to access items, they weren't necessarily happy about it. So this is, I think, Emma's favorite quote from the whole project, which is, "This is useful if I can find it. It's not online, so I'll have to search the library itself." This makes me cry a little. But generally, the students we saw didn't really have a problem with skipping over these harder to access items. They seemed to be able to find other things that they thought were just as good. So it didn't trouble them to skip these things. So these were our 4 themes that we thought were most relevant to technical services staff. I don't think there's really many big surprises here for most of you, I would guess. Anyway, but what we were really interested in is how our technical services staff at Carleton were going to react when they saw these results. What would they do with them? So in July, we gave a slightly longer version of this presentation to our technical services staff, and then had a discussion after that. So here are the first couple of comments from that discussion, just to give you a flavor. On the library website, we now have a summon search box instead of a catalog search box, and maybe that's why students aren't using the catalog, or catalog use was low. Are users even aware of the catalog? Students don't seem to be aware of subject headings. They should be taught about the catalog and how to do subject searches. And then this one is my favorite, not favorite. Maybe all first years could be given a booklet about how to search the catalog. So that was the beginning. But then the head of cataloging said something like, look, I'm not buying into this discussion that keyword searching is a bad search. Remember that keyword search's subject indexing is the most important part of this. And then the technical services supervisor whose questions started all of this said, I found the part about summon and the link resolver very interesting. This validates where we need to spend time. We can call out vendors when there's a consistent problem. Now I can be pushy to get issues resolved. If this is what students are relying on, then we have to make sure that what we have is right. That's great. And I do acknowledge that having a head and a supervisor weigh in with comments like this is bound to change the tone in the room, but it really got so much more positive and proactive from here on in. So comments like, I'm wondering about loading ebook records. Sometimes we have good records, but they don't have subjects. But perhaps now I can load these records. They have summaries, so they would get picked up in a keyword search. And someone else, catalogers can change the way we work and include tables of contents and summaries in monograph records when we find them. Maybe we can make this an official policy and procedure. And maybe we can take more time to see how someone pulls information and where that information is pulled from. Okay, so a move to better understand our discovery system and how it handles our records, a push to enrich our print and ebook records to improve keyword searching, and a renewed focus on making sure our knowledge base is accurate so the link resolver is working well. These are not groundbreaking ideas, but they came from the same group that wanted to give first-year students a booklet. So this was amazing. It was really lovely to see. I mean, I've been doing user research and presenting results to generally our reference staff for a few years, and they don't get over that feeling threatened stage very quickly. And the technical services staff really, they just moved on. They were a little threatened at the beginning. Totally makes sense. They spend most of their lives working in the catalog, well, not their lives, but their working lives working in the catalog. They have a totally catalog-centric view of the library. And now we're saying, nah, it's just keyword searching and Google Scholar. Don't worry about it. But they started coming up with different ways of working themselves and different ways of thinking about their work to better serve our users. It was really, really great. So technical services and user experience don't tend to go together very well. But Emma and I found that it's actually a pretty great fit. So our students search online, technical services staff are making decisions that affect how our stuff is found online. So they're really pretty perfectly positioned to improve the user experience for our students. And I'll give the last word to one of our staff members. So after seeing the results and having the discussion, she said, what I think we probably all want, now I can attack the right problems with purpose. Thanks.
Back again. I'm curious, did you ask the students you were doing interviews with if they had had library instruction? Because I kind of feel the 7 who used a catalog probably did.
We didn't ask them. Some of them offered. I will now tell the heartbreaking subject search story. A grad student, a mature grad student, she'd had a career in the public service, came back to do her master's degree, was one of our participants, and she said, okay, I'm gonna search the way I was taught in my library instruction class. And she was very proud that she knew what to do. She went to Summon, she went into advanced search, she plugged her keywords into the boxes, made sure they were all connected with Boolean ands, because she knew what they were called, and then she made them all subjects. So, yeah, how many results did she get? Nothing. Then she went to Google Scholar, plugged in the same keywords, and got 8 perfect articles exactly on her topic. Yay, library instruction. She was kind of fine because she had her stuff right in the end. Oh my God, it was awful. It was awful to see. And there were other similar things where people would, explain things that they'd learned, but they'd learned it wrong. And yeah, it wasn't great.
Say that this has led to sort of a focus at the end there you were talking about going in and looking at the data that sits behind the link resolver. If it's so important, make sure it's good. So I'm curious about two things, because I see at our institution that, and I've had experience in the last year to sort of use it more heavily as an actual user and become really kind of dismayed by the state of the KB data that sits behind our, and I don't mean what comes from the vendor, it's really our problem. We're not taking care of it. And so it's really degrading as a tool. But when I see that students want to use it, are you, with that insight, are you thinking about doing any, the supervisor who sort of put this in motion, thinking about putting more staff resources into doing that? Is that going to translate into action? That's the first question. And the second is, would you consider doing further research on the effectiveness of your link resolver? If it's one of the major findings, do you need to go in and look and sort of see, how accurate it is and how many click-throughs there are, how many just are dead-end menu, where the menu comes up and they don't proceed past it. So I'm just kind of curious where you're going with that.
I'm just checking to see if Emma weighs in, but yeah, absolutely. They were definitely keen to put more resources into the link resolver, hassling vendors when it was a problem that was not ours, and they were talking about looking for broken link. Like, I was there more for the discussion that happened after the results. I don't necessarily know exactly what they're doing within their department, but I know they were very keen, and they intended to make it a focus. Whether other things come up, we have we're one of the Collaborative Futures institutions, so they're going to be busy doing a lot of stuff. But the purpose of this project was to try to help them prioritize, and they really saw that this is vital. And yeah, we have some bad data in our link resolver too. It happens. Yeah. Was that okay? Thanks. Oh, whoa, sorry. Emma's checking in. What's she saying? Yes. Sorry. Yes. Action. Yes. Action for in. Staff resources move to knowledge base. Yeah. So yeah, for sure. Thanks, Emma. Sorry, I should have self-edited here.
Obviously, tech services got a lot out of this, but your research obviously has implications for library instruction as well. Has this been presented to library instructors, and how did they react?
Very good question. We presented to our senior staff last week and got an invitation to present to it's not reference anymore, it's research support services. So that's 2 weeks from now. So when I get back, I'm going to go and look at the data again and pull out, because really to do the same thing for them is kind of defeats the purpose almost, because the point was to look at what's relevant to technical services folks, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to grab that story for sure and present it to them. Send best wishes, bulletproof vest, whatever you think I might need. Yeah, we're totally gonna tell them what we found. I will let you know. If you don't see anything from me on Twitter, like for a month, get very worried. Yeah.
You might have said this, so sorry if I missed it. But UX and tech services, I find that really interesting, because I think I'm on the phone a lot with tech services, figuring out ways we can change things. So what I'm wondering is if you have, like, once you're done all this, are you going to put it somewhere? Because we're trying not to do the same UX stuff amongst ourselves, and trying to say that, you know what, if that's happening at Carleton, it's probably happening where I am.
Yeah. Emma's very keen to write up an article for, I don't remember anyway, some technical services journal. I will. She's totally gonna correct me. Yeah, she's here. Okay, no, that was for something else. Yeah. So yes, we plan. I mean, whether they accept us or not, but I'll just put it on my blog. Yeah, yeah. It will be somewhere. Yes, because we all do these little bits of things and we don't share, and yeah, for sure.